Hey, my name is Whitney Larson, and I am guest hosting this week's episode of Inside Ag. Today, I'm bringing you a Kansas-born and raised woman in agriculture, Kayla Josephiak. Kayla is a rancher's daughter turned farm wife who now lives in southwest Kansas with her husband, Ty, and 4 kids. She is passionate about mental health and began life coaching courses through the Health Coach Institute in May of this year and will graduate with her full certification in November. She is focusing on women in rural America who want to grow deeper in their relationship with Christ and work to become people God created them to be. Kayla's experience growing up in ag and her immersion in rural world now as a farm wife has helped her coaching clientele grow. So, hello, Kayla. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I'm excited to have you. Not only are you my friend, but I've seen you grow in your mental health journey and just help other women in agriculture. So I thought you would be great to bring to the podcast today.
Well, I'm super, super glad and humbled that you asked me.
So do you want to give a little backstory on your mental health and like what led you to the calling of wanting to do life coaching?
Yeah. So like Whitney said, I was born and raised in agriculture. I grew up on a purebred seed stock ranch and, 5 a.m. wake up calls in the summertime were kind of commonplace to go check cattle and do all the things before it got hot outside. My parents both were born and raised in agriculture. And so like rural America is my life. I love to travel, but you'll catch me hanging out with my kids on the farm before you'll catch me traveling all over the world. So my own battle, my own journey with mental health actually started really, really young. I remember when I was 4 or 5 being super anxious about really silly stuff. I'd be scared to get in the car. I'd be scared for my parents to leave if I wasn't with them because I didn't want something to happen to them. And at that time, I never really thought it was weird. I was just like, oh, that's how I function. But looking back now, I know I was a really anxious little kid. At the age of 13, 14, around 8th grade, freshman year of high school, I got diagnosed with clinical depression, which when you're 14 years old and they tell you you need to start taking Lexapro because you're depressed, you're like, what am I depressed about?
Right.
So at a very young age, I have battled mental health. I have battled my own demons of, am I worthy of this life? Is this life worth living? So fast forward through high school where I had numerous sports injuries and just things that really pushed me to try to figure out why I was going through this because I was so tired of just constantly like being in limbo. And actually, when I turned 22, I was in college at K-State. I was actually diagnosed with anxiety, which looking back now, I mean, I've had anxiety since I was like 4. And knowing and learning and diving into, my anxiety is what caused me to be depressed. And so I'm 31 now. So for the last 9 years, I've really like dove in, worked on my relationship with Christ. I've worked on my relationship with myself. And I've realized there's always going to be ups and downs, but just being a voice and talking about this kind of stuff, that's therapy to me because I know that for every person that talks about this, there's 10 people that don't want to say anything. And so I am by no means a mental health expert, but I truly, truly believe God put me on this earth to just share my own testimony because there have been so many people that have resonated with it in one way or another.
Right. And so same for me. When I was growing up, these weren't things that you heard people talk about. I feel like just getting into my 30s is when I finally heard people talk about it. And it makes you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not crazy. These things that I have been feeling are real things. And I am absolutely not the only person feeling it. And I feel like in rural America, especially, which same background as Kayla, except I wasn't in ag, we were both very immersed in sports. And so growing up thinking that your sports are like all you have. And then when that goes away, it's kind of hard to find your place. And so I'm proud of you for finding your calling and helping other people. But I will say that if I would have been your friend when you were younger and you talked about these things, it would have been much easier for me going into my becoming a mom, especially, and having baby blues and postpartum depression and all those things. Knowing that you're not alone is such a big deal. And I feel like it's even, and I don't know if you relate to this at all, but even harder for men because they're supposed to be the strong ones, supposed to be the rock, and they're supposed to hold it all together for their family and be the providers and do all these things without showing emotion or showing that they are struggling in any way. And that is just not real life. And I hope that anyone that's listening understands that if they are feeling hard times or It's okay to not be okay. That's just a really real part of life, and especially in agriculture and the ranching and farming world, there's so much that goes wrong every single day. There there isn't a day
Yeah.
that goes by that you don't face challenges, and that's just reality, and so knowing that there's a higher power that is actually for you and that you're not alone is such a big deal. Do you see a lot of that in rural America?
Yeah, it's actually funny that you say that because so a little bit of a backstory, and if you do follow me on social media, you know this, but my dad was actually diagnosed with stage 4 cancer in January. And my dad has always been a very faith-filled man, but in the last 6, 7 months, like I have seen him take his faith to the next level. And like literally any inconvenience, anything that I call him and like ask him about, just like having him as that outlet and having him be someone to tell me it's okay if you need to cry about this situation. It's okay if, you need to ask God why. And then realizing that, like you said, there is a higher power working for us. Like God is working all things for good. But I do feel lucky because my whole life I've had a man in my life, my father, who's raised cattle since he was very young. He has been a true testament of showing your emotion, telling your emotion. And you're right, like that's not the case for everyone in agriculture in rural America, and men and women alike, especially men. It's just kind of like you don't cry, you just push
Toughen
things
up.
down. Yeah.
Toughen up. Be tough.
And it's funny that you brought that up because 2 nights ago was our fair premium sale. And for anybody who's ever been involved in 4-H, like all the emotions when you're loading that steer up on the trailer and like you've put all that time in, like I'm going to be a basket case next year. But those boys were crying too. And I gave my nephews a hug and I said, it's okay to cry.
Yep.
Like it's okay because you love these animals. You know it's hard. You're learning a huge life lesson, but this is a beautiful opportunity for you to realize like it's okay to cry and show your emotion. And then I started crying, but it's just one of those things where like I've always been that person that I say exactly what's on my mind, which maybe might not be the best thing all the time, but it's one of those things where like if you're sad, if you're uncomfortable, if something's hard, like give that emotion space because otherwise it's just going to eat you alive.
Yep.
And there I'm kind of transitioning into life coaching mode, but
And then
but yeah,
you pent all that up, and then where does it have to go? Sometimes sometimes I've seen in families that it comes out in anger or lashing out at your kids or being upset with your family, and really you aren't upset with them, you just don't have anywhere to direct that emotion, and that's not okay, right? To
yeah.
take your stuff out on other people, and so talking about it and getting that stuff off your chest sometimes is the best way to move around all that. And we have a friend named Caitlin, and she's also a Kansas girl, and she spoke at one of my events for Cultivating Courage, and she said that hard does not always equal bad, and so that has always stuck with me, that this day might be really hard, but it doesn't mean we have a bad life. And it doesn't mean that tomorrow can't be better or even this afternoon can't be better. So I always think that, like, don't let a bad 5 minutes ruin the rest of your day. And so I want you to lead that into
Yeah.
your life coaching with everything you've had going on. I know you've been working really hard towards that. And I want to hear more about life coaching because I don't think some people really know what that is.
Well, so my husband would be like the number one person who, when I first kind of pitched this idea to him, he's like, "Excuse me, what's a life coach?" Um, so I actually got a education degree from K-State. I taught high school biology for 2 years, and that's what brought me out to Western Kansas. And I loved being in the classroom, but I got tired of all the politics in education. So when I got pregnant with my oldest, I decided to stay home. And then I've had 3 more babies since. So I'm at home with 4 kids under 7. And I love it, but I always felt like there was more of a pull. And so this last spring, I actually had the opportunity to go back to teaching. And I went and I talked to our local school district, and it just didn't feel right. I didn't feel like excited about it. I just thought of, if we have to do this, I will. But so Ty, my husband, finally asked, "What do you want to do?" Like what, like, on The Notebook when Ryan Gosling's like, "What do you want?" That's like, it was one of those moments. And I looked at him and I said, "I want to be a life coach." And he said, "Well, what's a life coach?" And I said, "I just see it as someone who can help hold people accountable, help them reach their goals, help dive into their relationship with Christ, and not feel like there has to be any judgment." So I've actually had this dream for close to 6 years. I found a notebook that I wrote in when I was pregnant with my second oldest daughter. And it said life coaching school, life coaching journey, all these kind of things. So essentially, I had been doing a lot of research and I picked the Health Coach Institute because they also implement like holistic health, nutrition, and working out and body movement, which is super important to me. And
Right.
so, yeah, I started courses in May, and I've been in like an intensive 6 month course. And I actually just opened up clientele. I opened up applications for just a discovery session, which is where you can come and we chat for like 45 minutes just to see if your goals align with how I can help you. And those goals can be personal or they can be professional. Sometimes people's goals are slowing down and enjoying farm life, enjoying life on the ranch. And I'm just as much for that as I am for, oh, let's help you start a big business.
Right.
So I will graduate in November. So life coaching isn't actually, you don't have to have any sort of certification. You don't have to have any sort of credentials behind your name. But to me, it was very, very important that I get credentials, that I go through certification so that I could properly equip my clients with whatever they may need. So
Certification is a big deal.
yes. Yeah. Well, and it's crazy because like since I started looking up life coaching certifications, literally everything in my Facebook and Instagram feed ads is like become a certified life coach for $7. And I was like, how much credibility is that going to give you, you know? And
Right.
so that's why I wanted to dive in and do the hard work, and it's been so good.
It's so good that you have that too. And there's so many resources out there anymore. And I don't know that if I was oblivious to it previous to motherhood, like before I had any anxiety or real like, I don't consider myself to have depression, but I do have severe anxiety. And so I don't know if I just never heard anyone talk about it, but nowadays there's just so many resources where you can get help. And it is okay to ask for help or to seek out therapy or life coaching or something to better yourself. And I just think I'm going to speak as a farmer, we spend so much money on our operations to operate, right? But then we put ourselves on the very back burner and we let ourselves get so depleted and tired, exhausted, ran down that we never think to, hey, maybe I'll put a little money into myself. Like, go to the doctor,
Yeah.
get my blood work done, make sure I'm actually functioning at a high capacity and like doing the best I can, being the best I can be. And so I think it's good to hear that it's okay for you to spend some money on yourself to make sure you are happy and functioning at the highest capability that you can be, because we do have the most stressful jobs and operations and day-to-day lives in this agriculture industry. And so I love that you're doing this. I think it's a big deal and I'm really proud of you for it.
Thank you.
If anyone has questions about it, what's the best way they can contact you?
So the best way right now would be through social media, either Instagram or Facebook. I actually, in the next week and a half after I have my final meetings, I am launching a new website just for easy access of information and everything. But I'm very hands on with all of it. So I have applications coming in and I'm reviewing all of those individually. And if anybody ever has any questions, like the best way is to DM me on Instagram and I'll get back to it as soon as I can. But I was going to piggyback on what you said and how, we spend thousands and thousands of dollars on our operations to make sure that irrigation pivots are working and we have the right inputs and we get the best yields and all of those kind of things. And it's like, that is fantastic. And there are a lot of progressive farmers in this nation. But if you're not putting yourself first when it comes to your mental health and how you're functioning as a human being, you're not giving the farm your best self.
No.
And so, like, it's always been very important to me. Like, I work on my relationship with Christ, which makes me a better mom. And then it makes me a better farm wife. And then whenever I get that call where I need to go help move something or I need to go pick something up in town, I'm not immediately annoyed by it, you know?
Right.
It's like, this is part of my role, and I've taken that time to invest in myself, and so now, like, minor inconveniences don't become big things. They just are, like, part of life. So
Right. Right. And how
so
long are
yeah.
your sessions?
So sessions run in a variety of ways. So we cover all of this in a discovery session, which is your initial conversation with me. It runs about 45 minutes. They're completely complimentary, completely free. So if you fill out an application and you go through a discovery session and you're like, I just am not feeling this, that's totally fine. So then after a discovery session, I have a few different packages that I offer. I have a 6-week package, which is just getting your feet wet. And I will say that people, I would venture to guess, once we get to once we get to session 6, they're going to be ready for session 7 so they could re-up and continue the following 6 weeks. But my whole program runs 12 weeks. They're 1-hour sessions a week. You have Marco Polo or Voxer communication with me during business hours. And then I give you any sort of supplemental information that you may need. So essentially, I'm there to hold you accountable. And I'm also there to tell you, get your butt in gear if you feel like you're falling off of your goals.
Right, for sure. And so I wanted to pinpoint how long your sessions were because I know that we're all busy and we all have things to do. We have to-do lists that never end on farms and ranches and in our homes. If there's women listening out there and you have full-time jobs and you're running and trying to do all the things plus help on the farm, an hour out of your day, which I read once this about a workout, like an hour out of your day is like some percent. That's ridiculous little. And if you can schedule a 1-hour session over your lunch hour or in the evening or first thing in the morning and get your head right and get going towards something that is making you feel better, it is worth every penny to feel better and to be doing better for yourself. So if they are interested in contacting you, what is your social contact?
So my Instagram handle is at Kayla Josephiak, which that last name, man, it's a mouthful. It's
Thank
so
you,
it's
Ty.
at thank you, Ty. Good thing I love him. So it's just, yeah, it's at Kayla Josephiak, KaylaJosephiak. And yeah, the best way right now is contact me on Instagram, but in the next couple weeks after my website launches, I'll have a communication page there and everything, and I'll be sure to share that on my socials as well.
Do you happen to have an email in case there's anyone that does not do Instagram?
I do. It's hello@kaylajosephiak.com.
Same spelling as the other.
Same same long spelling as the other, especially because my maiden name was significantly shorter and easier to pronounce.
Is there anything else you would like to leave our listeners with this week?
So I was going to say, because you had said like it's 1 hour a week to invest in yourself. And I was going to tell you guys that it's one of those things where, it does feel super overwhelming. And you're like, I don't have that time, Kayla, which I know I've been there. Like I have been that person who has put off doing anything for myself to better myself. And I ended up in a very, very dark space where life was just hard all the time. I was not enjoying my husband. I was not enjoying my kids. And I just want to leave you with, if you feel like, or if there's a calling in your heart that maybe I should check this out, maybe I should see, what's going on. A lot of people are surprised, and it's hard to admit sometimes that they're overwhelmed and they feel trapped by their life. They feel trapped by a spouse, or they feel trapped by having kids, or they feel trapped by the farm. Like it turns into this super negative connotation. And I truly believe, and I know that if you do take that time to invest an hour in yourself once a week, if you do decide to do a discovery call and you felt like this is something that you want to pursue, we work together. I work with you to help you not feel trapped. And I work with you to help you realize that, yes, you can take this hour every week and you can also be a really good mom, and you can be a really good wife, and you can be a really good farmer. So it's not an all or nothing. It's an and. You get to invest in yourself, and you get to, like, every other part of your life. It just gets better. Like we're zooming right now, and when I talk about this, I just feel like my whole face just like lights up because I love
It
it so
does.
much. But it really is possible. It's just you have to take that chance, and it's big and scary, but if it's something on your heart, please reach out, because I would absolutely love to help either be your coach or help you find a coach that would get you to where you want to be.
Right. And I think it's important to also note that not necessarily, I don't want to say asking for help, but I do want to say asking for help. Asking for help and or admitting that you might need something like this in your life does not make you weak. It makes you really strong in knowing
Oh,
that.
absolutely.
Makes you really strong in knowing that there's
Yeah.
something lacking in your life that you just want to be better, and there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah, nothing at all. Actually, like, some of the strongest people have the absolute best support systems. They have the absolute best help in their lives to help them be the version that God created them to be.
Yep, absolutely. And so if anyone's ever listened to my podcast, I always end it with a quote, and I'm still going with Caitlin Henderson's, and it is hard does not equal bad.
Absolutely.
And so thank you for being with us today. I appreciate it so much. And if you guys have any other questions, we will leave some notes on how to get in contact with Kayla.